Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 927, Black Politics. Please hit the like button on the way in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. I'm here with my co-panelist, Nagon 11.
Hey, what's up, Mike? How you doing?
Hey, not much, man. What's shaking around the parts of politics is federal courts are rejecting redistricting. Let's go into the first item on the docket, which happens to be in Alabama, where this all started.
Take a look.
Share my screen. All right, this is from the New York Times. Court rejects Alabama House map, calling it unfair to black voters. Alabama is likely to appeal the ruling, which stops an effort to use a new congressional map that would likely cost Democrats a majority black district. A panel of federal judges on Tuesday rejected Alabama's effort to use a new voting map for the November midterm elections, saying that the districts discriminated against black people and could not be used shortly before a vote. Alabama's Attorney General Steve Marshall announced in a court filing Tuesday afternoon that he would immediately appeal to the Supreme Court, which last month ruled that a Louisiana congressional map drawn to create two majority black House districts was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. Governor Kay Ivey, a Republican, has already set special primaries in August in 4 House districts that would be affected by her state's new congressional map. The ruling further confuses the electoral landscape across the South as Republican-led legislatures have raced to implement new district lines after the Supreme Court narrowed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It also demonstrates how the ruling from the nation's highest court has further muddled how lower courts interpret the landmark civil rights law. And in a seesaw battle over redistricting ahead of the midterms, Democrats seeking control of the House got 2 wins on Tuesday, the ruling in Alabama, plus the decision by the South Carolina state senators to adjourn without drawing up a new map to eliminate the state's one majority black House seat. With thousands of votes already cast on the first day of the South Carolina's early voting, there was no longer enough support among Republicans to push through new district lines before the state's June 9th primary. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this kind of covers the highlight of what's going on with the Republicans and MAGA as a whole trying to fix the elections in November. Nagon, what do you think about this?
Well, yeah, that definitely puts a big, it really does put a, how would we say, a big speed bump in their road. We'll have to take a look and see what the Supreme Court says if it bounces back to them right now. So now they're bouncing it back to them to make a decision. Is the Supreme Court hungry enough to say, yeah, we're going to back up this racial gerrymander as well, and you guys can go ahead and change those maps right in the middle of elections and so forth, because we've had some elections start already. Some ballots have already gone in. So are they really going to do that? We don't know. That's still up in the air, but that's very, very, very serious, kind of kickback showing you that, yeah, Mike, this gerrymandering move that these guys have pulled, the courts in the states are looking at this as a gerrymander to keep blacks from having representation. They have looked at it from that perspective, and you have those that are backing up the decision made by the Supreme Court, saying they don't have a problem with it, but the lower courts seem to have a real issue with it, and it kind of violates what those districts were really created for in the first place. You wanted to have black representation. You wanted to have that, and this will eliminate it. There are those who are going against that, who are going against you having representation that are actually coming from some of our own community, which I find particularly disturbing.
especially the pro-Black Pan-Africanists, right? The so-called master teachers or whatever you want to call them, they seem to think that this is okay. They see nothing wrong with this. Black people are okay with not having voting representation at the congressional level. But then when I tell you about a 19-point agenda or whatever agenda it is, states' rights, we're passing things in Kentucky. Are you really doing all these things? How are you going to get anything accomplished if you don't have the representation in office to do so? Make it make sense.
None of it makes sense because it's not sensible. Okay, you are going against your own. You're going against your own interests. And these people are trying to tell you that this is okay. How are they working with this? How does this work? Taxation without representation was one of the major mantras that came out of really building this very country. This very country was founded on, but you cannot tax anyone if they don't have representation. You can't do that. But these people seem to be okay with that at the federal level, where many federal dollars that will come into your district and your communities, okay, that come in routinely, and projects that can come in from everything from housing to healthcare to education, everything you can basically think about that goes on in your community will be cut back. And where will that money go? Where will those monies go? Well, it can just go anyway. It ain't helping us anyway. You'll hear people making these kind of ridiculous comments where this stuff goes, where these programs help in your community on a routine level. Some of you don't even know probably what's even going on with that, but that's how a lot of people say, you guys don't even know what's going on with this. Yes, you don't, but you don't know how these dollars are coming down and affecting your community in ways that maybe, you haven't looked at or considered, but yet these dollars you'll be denied. And people are going to sit down and say, we shouldn't have representation in Congress? We shouldn't have federal representation? This is okay? It's unbelievable that we have those that are siding with this. Unbelievable. Go ahead, Mike.
And the South is wholly dependent upon federal dollars coming in. So when you have places like rural hospitals in Alabama and Georgia, Indiana, closing, by the dozens, rural clinics, I should say, that's a big problem. I mean, a lot of states are wholly dependent upon federal dollars. And when you have people, specifically Black men in what's called the Black manosphere, trying to lament about how this is, there's nothing wrong with this. This is a nothing burger, that you're losing that Black congressional representation for your vote. I'm not sure if they understand the gravity of the situation, because like you said, it cascades all the way down the board, right? You lack the representation, so therefore no one's going to be in Washington, advocating for your district, or the lack of a district, for that matter, to have the legislation that's necessary to have the federal dollars come in to help roll out infrastructure, roll out your social infrastructure, just infrastructure, but civil infrastructure, social infrastructure, your logistics and things of that nature. Your busing systems, your mass transit systems, that's all generated by federal dollars. States very rarely foot the whole entire bill, especially in the South. And this is the same Alabama that got COVID relief funds back in the 2020-2021 cycle, and they took those COVID relief funds and they spent it on prisons. Okay, it didn't go to Black people.
It didn't. And you'll see that at a much greater level. You will have nothing coming into your community, but people don't seem to make this connection between the federal government and what's going on a daily basis in your community that you have, and that can happen to and negative things can happen to any community where you might need federal dollars and so forth to come through. You may have to have projects that will take maybe some time. It may be a developmental project that may have to take 2 or 3 or 4 years in a cycle of consistent funding. We can get into infrastructure and so forth that's going to improve in your town. in your towns, villages, and counties. So these dollars filter right in. Many of those dollars come from, of course, from your federal, and then move into your state budgets that are then distributed down to your local budgets as well. All right. So you look at this as a total cascade from the federal to the state to the county to the city. That's exactly how these dollars come down. Many of those dollars also are coming from blue states, because a lot of these other southern states that we're talking about do have rather serious financial issues, all right, and unbalanced budgets and so forth. And so you're looking at 35-40% of some of their budgets, not all the southern states, but some of them being subsidized by the wealthier northern blue states. Very, very, very serious stuff. So you not having representation at that level is, I think it's fundamentally illegal. It shouldn't be able to exist. And we are the maximum victims of this, because we will not be the beneficiaries. Those dollars will go to those other communities that you will not have. And this is a real issue that we have to sit down and really think about in this, because this affects us at the grassroots level. And many are not thinking about that, but yet they're saying that they support that and care for these men and, yes, women in their communities, saying, "Oh, this is okay." But for black men, and we could look at programs funding from yes, housing programs that you have, education programs that you have, jobs programs that you have, employment opportunities. All of that comes down to us, and we're going to be cut out. And you're good with that, and you're good with it. Very disturbing to hear such things.
Yeah, let's jump to the next item, which is the good state of Indiana. Redistricting return. Leadership questions loom after Indiana Senate primary shakeup. This is from the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. A return of the congressional redistricting debate, a potential shakeup of Indiana Senate leadership, and a greater willingness to push through a right-wing agenda. Those are all possible repercussions from the wave of Republican primary victories by President Donald Trump endorsed candidates over incumbent senators who defied his redistricting demands. The ouster of 6 senators with nearly a century of General Assembly experience will usher in a group of new lawmakers whom Governor Mike Braun and other supporters expect will bolster more aggressive action. The Senate's vote in December to defeat the proposed redrawing of the Indiana's U.S. House districts to further favor GOP candidates was a unique rejection of Trump's directives by a Republican-led state. The vote saw 21 Republican senators oppose redistricting and 19 vote in favor, with at least 6 GOP senators who voted against those maps being defeated in Tuesday's primary, and 2 others not seeking re-election this year. November's election wins could give redistricting supporters the 26 votes they need to start from scratch. Braun said Wednesday that it was too late for action on redistricting this year, but redistricting supporters clearly want new maps approved ahead of the 2028 elections. And the approval of a Virginia referendum in support of a Democrat gerrymander in that state might have boosted the Indiana Senate challengers. Bluffington City Councilman Blake Fitcher, who defeated longtime Senator Travis Holman, said the redistricting topic came up frequently while he was talking with voters. Quote, seeing what a lot of those Democrat states were doing right. Sorry, let me repeat that again. Seeing what a lot of those Democrat states were doing right there towards the end of the campaign, I think it really amped up. Well, this is why we should redistrict it. Sorry. Victor told Indiana Capitol Chronicle. So I felt pretty confident that it was a strong motivator for the voters. I think what we're seeing here, and I'm not going to read this whole thing because this is pretty long. I think what we're seeing here is the strategy that may have started in Alabama and in Louisiana is not necessarily trickling up in the same fashion that the administration, MAGA, had planned out. And Republicans are actually starting to buck some of this, saying, hey, these ideas are not necessarily all that enthusiastic. You know, people are not all that enthusiastic about doing all this redistricting as was well thought out, you know, well, not so well thought out in Louisiana. So I think what we're starting to see now is a pushback that was unexpected from the administration to begin with, that they're just going to cheat their way through November to hope to win. And we know that when Democrats put it on the ballot, that it actually passed in majority vote. So when they try to unilaterally do these things, it doesn't really work all that well. What do you think, Nicole?
Well, that's exactly correct. And you have to look at it. The Republicans who have looked at this, and some of them have said, well, we can't really go with this right now because we're going to look to redistrict. But what the voting rights was created for was why these districts were created. Now we're going to go back. I maybe sound like a broken record. Now we're supposed to go back and erase these districts that were designed to remedy the problem that first brought the Voting Rights Act about. This is what we're trying to turn this back. The conservative Republican judges who looked at this said, hey, hold it one second. We can't do that. We can look at certain things, but at the end of the day, we have to stay within the letter of the law here. And we are totally outside of that, okay? If we decide to move forward here, and then there's a counter resolution to this as well. So we can't go with that. We can't go with that at this point. That's what we're looking at, Mike. Yeah. There's no way to play this any other way but there, and that's what these judges are doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I apologize to people who are going to watch this on the replay that I was not sharing the tab completely. I am sharing it now, and the link will be in the description of the video for you to follow along with for reference. Let me jump to the last item that we have up here. This is from the ACLU. Federal court orders Georgia to redraw state legislative district maps. General Assembly has December 8th deadline to create maps equitable for Black voters. So what we see here is the federal courts are stepping in, to assert, the rule of law. A federal court today ruled out Georgia state legislative district maps discriminate against Black voters and must be withdrawn. The decision follows an 8-day trial in September in Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity versus Raffensperger, a lawsuit brought by the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU of Georgia, and Wilma Hale on behalf of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the 6th district of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and several individual Georgia voters. The group successfully argued that the maps deny Black Georgians an equal opportunity to participate in the political process and elect candidates of choice in violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. New district maps are drawn as part of a once-in-a-decade redistricting process triggered by the decennial census. They determine the allocation of the political power and representation and access to resources at every level of government for the next 10 years. The 2020 census showed tremendous growth in the state's Black population over the last decade. However, lawmakers enacted legislative maps with district lines that denied the state's undeniable demographic shift, diluting Black Georgians' voting strength especially in metro Atlanta, where the black population had increased by hundreds of thousands. During the trial, plaintiffs presented the court with abundant evidence that spotlighted a pattern of stark, racially polarized voting in the state and how Georgia's long history of racial discrimination continues to reverberate today. The court ruled that the state's failure to draw 2 new Black Opportunity Districts in the state Senate and 5 new Black Opportunity Districts in the state House violated the Voting Rights Act and ordered the General Assembly to draw new maps no later than December 8th of 2023. In its ruling, the court held that while Georgia has made progress since 1965, the evidence before this court shows that Georgia has not reached the point where the political process has equal openness and equal opportunity for everyone. The court's order, therefore, was issued to ensure that Georgia continues to move towards equal openness and equal opportunity for everyone to participate in the electoral system. So, I mean, we've covered these things, just earlier tonight. But what I find interesting is that in the Black manosphere, the last 3 to 4 weeks, we've had master teachers and other content creators and other panelists come out here selling whoop tickets, talking about you don't need the Voting Rights Act. They're not trying to take away your vote. They're not trying to do that. I watch other pontificators on YouTube and they broke it down for me, and I agree with them. I don't see nothing wrong with, suspending the Voting Rights Act and all this redistricting. I don't see nothing wrong with that. Remember all them black men, right? Damn. It wasn't black women. It was black men who sat in the manosphere on these panels just in the last 2 to 3 to 4 weeks talking about ain't nothing wrong with redistricting and taking away your opportunity to vote. And the federal courts just stated in this, and Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated, okay?
My frat.
Your frat took these mother effers to court. Meanwhile, the manosphere is sitting around talking about Jasmine Crockett, worried about, Kamala Harris, worried about Fannie Willis, worried about Letitia James, worried about Marilyn Mosby, right? What other black women are they worried about now?
Let me see. Well, I guess the old standbys are the old Michelle Obamas and I'm trying to think anyone else. Well, we already said Kamala Harris, of course, but
Debbie Weissman Schultz. all of this name dropping, right? Like they the game, right? The rapper, right? The game, all this name dropping, right? Nothing to say about what these federal courts are saying. Federal courts are saying, actually, you are discriminating against black people in their ability to participate in the political process. So all these master teachers who ran around here talking about, I heard from this lawyer and I heard from this person and this content creator told me this, and I brought the PhDs to the space and the scholars and all this. Your argument is null and void. The federal court is telling you that what is going on right now by Republicans is against the law, okay? It's against the law.
Ex-Regis, absolutely. Against the law, outside of the law. They're holding up the law. Now they're throwing it back on the Supreme Court and say, what y'all gonna do about this? Because it violates every section that we're talking about. Section 2 and Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. Let's get into that. We're not playing this. And these are conservative, Republican, appointed by Trump judges.
Yeah.
So it's not, he's a rhino. He's a rhino. A rhino wouldn't know a rhino if it really ran up your backside and hit you. You wouldn't know it. So with a rhino, no, these wouldn't be those type of people.
No,
these are judges. These are federal court judges. Now here they are. State court. They're in the lower court. They're gonna bounce it back because they said you guys here in the the SCOTUS, you boys are way out of line on some of this stuff. That's kind of how they're really looking at this, and they're kicking it back. So all, like you said, Mike, all these master teachers and all this other gobbledygook running around out here. What do they have to say to this? Are they okay? These are judges. Once again, these are Republican appointed, Trump appointed, conservative judges. These are not liberals. These are not liberals or progressives. Go ahead, Mike.
Let's look at this last piece, and then we'll just wrap it up. This is from the Department of Justice, Office of Civil Rights, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Let's just cover this really quickly. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 prohibits voting practices or procedures that discriminate on the basis of color, or race, color, or membership in one of the language minority groups identified in Section 4, Frank 2 of the Act. Most of the cases arising under Section 2 since its enactment involve challenges to at-large election schemes. But the section's prohibition against discrimination in voting applies nationwide to any voting standard, practice, or procedure that results in the denial or infringement of the right of any citizen to vote on account of race, color, or membership in any language minority group. Section 2 is permanent and has no expiration date, as do certain other provisions of the Voting Rights Act. Okay, this is coming from the federal government. This is coming from the federal government. You had guys in the manosphere sitting up at 2:00 in the morning. I don't see nothing wrong with, what Republicans are doing. It's all good because, I heard this podcast and I heard this person pontificate about it. And they said, it was a nothing burger. Well, you must not be all that hungry, because if you think it's a nothing burger, wait until you see how your 19-point agenda gets across. Because if you can gut this, Section 2, and you can redistrict maps and have no congressional representation, what do you think they're going to do with your 19-point agenda? It's going to be the same toilet paper that you can buy at any convenience store next to Charmin's. Actually, it might cut your backside with how dry the paper is, because ain't nobody presenting it nowhere. So what I'm saying here in my closing thoughts is that the Voting Rights Act is so important for Black people in the South, because those states that are doing the discrimination are formerly Confederate states. That's why you have it in the first place. And the demographics are starting to change, like it said about Georgia, that Black representation is on the upswing, not the downswing. So you can't just arbitrarily, cut these people out and then say, it discriminates against white people. No, it don't work like that. It don't work like that. And unfortunately, you have a lot of Black men in the Black manosphere who support white nationalism by being a surrogate for it, and think that gutting up the VRA is a strategic move for them.
They're functioning on the level of white supremacists, and that's what they are. Make no mistake about it.
Your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are: thank you very much, Mike, for bringing me up. I really appreciate this, and let's continue to speak openly and honestly about what's truly going on out here. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you all for joining. Please hit the like button, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.